Captain Sarah Eagle Martinez walked across the tarmac at Edwards Air Force Base, her flight suit crisp despite the desert heat. The morning sun cast long shadows from the F-22 Raptors, lined up like sleeping giants. Other pilots gathered near the briefing room, their voices carrying across the concrete as they discussed the upcoming training exercise. "Look who's here!" called out Lieutenant Jake Viper Thompson, a cocky smile spreading across his face. "Our little eagle thinks she can play with the big boys today." Sarah kept walking, her jaw tight but her expression neutral. She had learned early in her career that responding to every taunt would only fuel the fire. The other pilots chuckled, but she noticed Captain Mike Ghost Rodriguez shake his head slightly in disapproval. "Come on, Viper," Ghost said quietly. "She's earned her place here same as us." "Has she, though?" Viper's voice grew louder, clearly wanting an audience. "I heard she only got her call sign because she flies high and runs from fights. Like a real eagle, right? All show, no bite." Sarah stopped walking and turned around slowly. The group of 8 pilots fell silent, sensing the tension. Her dark eyes met Viper's challenging stare across the 20 feet of hot asphalt between them. "Actually," she said, her voice calm and clear, "I got my call sign because I can spot targets from distances you couldn't even dream of reaching, and I strike with precision that would make your grandmother's sewing look sloppy." A few pilots snickered, but Viper's face reddened. "Big talk from someone who's never seen real combat. This isn't flight school anymore, sweetheart." "Neither is basic courtesy, apparently," Sarah replied, turning back toward the briefing room. "But I suppose some lessons take longer to learn than others." Inside the air-conditioned briefing room, Colonel James Hammer Harrison stood at the front, waiting for the pilots to settle into their seats. Sarah chose a seat in the middle row, avoiding both the front where eager beavers sat and the back where the troublemakers gathered. She pulled out her tablet and began reviewing the mission parameters they had received the night before. "All right, listen up," Colonel Harrison began, his weathered face serious. "Today's exercise is codenamed Red Thunder. We've got a simulated enemy force approaching from the east, multiple aircraft including fighters and bombers. Your job is air superiority. Protect our assets and eliminate theirs." He clicked a remote, and a large screen behind him displayed a tactical map. "The enemy will be played by the 65th Aggressor Squadron from Nellis. They know every trick in the book, so don't expect this to be easy." Sarah studied the map intently. The terrain showed mountains to the north, desert to the south, and a crucial air corridor running east to west through the middle. She mentally calculated approach vectors and potential ambush points. "Flight assignments," Colonel Harrison continued. "Alpha Flight will take the northern sector. Bravo Flight takes central. Charlie Flight has the south. Martinez, you're flying solo as reserve. Call sign Eagle-7 for this exercise." Sarah heard Viper whisper loudly to the pilot next to him. Of course they put the girl in timeout. Can't risk her getting in the way of real pilots. Several heads turned toward him, but Colonel Harrison's sharp glare silenced any further comments. "As I was saying, Eagle-7 will maintain high-altitude overwatch and respond to threats as needed. This isn't a punishment assignment, Thompson. It's tactical positioning for someone with the skills to make it count." The briefing continued with weather reports, communication frequencies, and emergency procedures. Sarah absorbed every detail, knowing that in real combat, the smallest oversight could mean the difference between life and death. She had trained for this moment for 8 years, ever since she first stepped into a cockpit at the Air Force Academy. After the briefing, the pilots dispersed to their aircraft. Sarah walked alone to her F-22, its angular stealth design gleaming in the morning sun. Chief Master Sergeant Williams, her crew chief, was already performing the pre-flight inspection. "Morning, Captain," he greeted her with a respectful nod. "She's ready to fly. Fuel topped off. Weapon systems armed with training rounds. All systems green." "Thanks, Chief," Sarah replied, running her hand along the aircraft's smooth surface. "Any word on how the aggressors are planning to play this?" "Can't say for sure, but I heard they're bringing some new tactics. Something about multi-axis attacks." He handed her the maintenance log. "Whatever they throw at you, this bird will handle it." Sarah began her own pre-flight walk-around, checking every panel, every sensor, every control surface. She had performed this ritual hundreds of times, but she never rushed it. Her father, a Vietnam-era fighter pilot, had taught her that attention to detail was what separated the living from the dead in aerial combat. As she climbed into the cockpit, she could hear the other pilots starting their engines. The familiar whine of jet turbines filled the air, a sound that never failed to quicken her pulse. She strapped herself in, adjusted her helmet, and began the startup sequence. Eagle-7, this is Tower. Radio check, came the voice of the air traffic controller. Tower, Eagle-7, loud and clear, Sarah responded, her voice steady and professional. Roger, Eagle-7, stand by for taxi clearance. Through her canopy, Sarah could see the other flights preparing to taxi. Alpha Flight, led by Captain Shark Peterson, was already moving toward the runway. Bravo Flight, with Ghost as flight leader, followed behind. Charlie Flight, unfortunately led by Viper, brought up the rear. All flights, this is Tower. Weather is clear, winds calm. Good hunting out there. Eagle-7, you're cleared to taxi. Take runway 27 right. Sarah released the brakes and guided her aircraft toward the runway. The F-22 responded to her touch like a living thing, every control input precise and immediate. She had over 800 hours in the Raptor, but it still amazed her how the massive fighter could feel so nimble. As she waited her turn for takeoff, she reviewed the mission one more time. The aggressor force would likely come in waves, testing different tactics. Her job was to maintain situational awareness and strike where needed most. It was a position of trust, despite Viper's comments. Eagle-7 Tower, you're cleared for takeoff. Winds 270 at 5 knots. Eagle-7 cleared for takeoff, she acknowledged, advancing the throttles. The twin Pratt & Whitney engines roared to life, pushing her back into her seat as the F-22 accelerated down the runway. At 180 miles per hour, she pulled back on the stick and felt the aircraft lift smoothly into the desert sky. Eagle-7 airborne, she reported, retracting the landing gear. Roger, Eagle-7, contact departure control on a 124.7. Good luck out there. Sarah switched frequencies and checked in with departure control, then began her climb to 40,000 feet. From this altitude, she could see for hundreds of miles in every direction. The curved horizon stretched endlessly, broken only by distant mountain ranges and the occasional cloud formation. Eagle-7, this is Hammer, came Colonel Harrison's voice on the command frequency. Take position over waypoint Alpha. Maintain radio silence unless you have traffic. Eagle-7, Roger, moving to Alpha. She banked left and headed toward her assigned position, a point in space that would give her the best overview of the battle space. Below her, the 3 flights spread out into their sectors, their aircraft barely visible as specks against the brown desert floor. The radio crackled with routine position reports as the exercise officially began. Sarah activated her radar and began scanning for the aggressor force. The F-22's AN/APG-77 radar could detect targets at ranges exceeding 100 miles, giving her eyes that reached far beyond the horizon. At first, the display showed only friendly contacts. Alpha Flight patrolled the northern mountains while Bravo and Charlie held their positions in the central and southern sectors. Everything appeared normal, but Sarah had learned never to trust appearances in combat. 15 minutes into the exercise, her radar picked up the first contacts. 4 aircraft approaching from the northeast, flying low and fast. She immediately switched to the command frequency. Hammer, Eagle-7, multiple contacts bearing 045, range 85 miles, low altitude, 4 aircraft in formation. Eagle-7, Hammer, understood. Continue monitoring. Sarah watched as the contacts maintained their course toward Alpha Flight's sector. She was about to relay their position when her radar detected something else. A single aircraft, much higher than the others, approaching from the east at extreme range. Hammer, Eagle-7, additional contact, bearing 090, range 120 miles, high altitude. Single aircraft, possibly reconnaissance. Roger, Eagle-7. Alpha Flight, you have bandits inbound your sector. The radio immediately came alive with chatter as Alpha Flight maneuvered to intercept. Sarah continued monitoring both groups while scanning for additional threats. Her instincts told her this was just the opening move. She was right. Her radar screen suddenly lit up with new contacts emerging from terrain masking in multiple directions. The aggressors had used the mountains and low-altitude approach to hide their true numbers. What appeared to be 4 aircraft was actually 12, coming at the defense force from 3 different vectors simultaneously. Hammer, Eagle-7. Revised count. Bandits have multiplied. I show 12 aircraft total, attacking from multiple directions. Eagle-7, say again? 12 aircraft. Repeat 12 aircraft. They use terrain masking to hide their approach. Alpha Flight is about to be outnumbered 3-1. Before Colonel Harrison could respond, the air battle erupted below. Sarah could hear the urgent radio calls as Alpha Flight found themselves surrounded by superior numbers. Shark's voice cut through the chaos, trying to coordinate his overwhelmed flight. Alpha 2, break left. Bandit on your 6. I see him, engaging. Alpha 4, where are you? Taking fire, I'm hit. Sarah watched the tactical display as the friendly symbols scattered under the aggressive assault. Alpha Flight was in serious trouble, and at this rate, they would all be shot down within minutes. Eagle-7, this is Hammer. Provide assistance to Alpha Flight immediately. Eagle-7, Roger, descending to engage. Sarah rolled her aircraft into a steep dive, the altimeter unwinding rapidly as she plunged toward the dogfight below. The F-22's speed built quickly, passing through Mach 1 with barely a tremor. She armed her weapons and began selecting targets. The aggressor aircraft were F-16s painted in fictional enemy markings. They were good pilots. She could see that immediately from their formations and tactics. But they had made one crucial mistake. They were so focused on Alpha Flight that they hadn't noticed the Angel of Death diving down on them from above. Sarah selected the lead aggressor aircraft and locked onto it with her radar. The F-22's stealth characteristics meant he wouldn't know she was there until it was too late. She waited until she reached optimal firing position, then squeezed the trigger. Fox 2, she called, indicating a simulated missile shot. The lead aggressor immediately pulled into a desperate evasive maneuver, but the training computer had already calculated the intercept. His aircraft's warning systems would be screaming that he had been successfully engaged. Red leader is down, came the aggressor pilot's voice over the common frequency, confirming the successful engagement. Sarah immediately selected her next target, another F-16 that was pursuing Alpha 3. She maneuvered behind him and achieved missile lock within seconds. Fox 2, she called again. Red 4's down. The remaining aggressor pilots suddenly realized they were being attacked from above. Sarah could hear them on the radio, trying to figure out where the shots were coming from. Where is he? I don't see anything on radar. Somebody's picking us off. Break formation. The coordinated attack dissolved into chaos as the aggressors tried to deal with this unexpected threat. Sarah used their confusion to her advantage, systematically eliminating 2 more aircraft before the survivors finally spotted her and began to coordinate their defense. But by then, Alpha Flight had regrouped and was back in the fight. What had started as a 4 versus 12 mismatch was now 4 versus 6, much better odds. The battle continued for another 20 minutes as Sarah worked with Alpha Flight to eliminate the remaining aggressors. Her superior altitude and the F-22's advanced sensors allowed her to coordinate the attack like a quarterback calling plays. When the last aggressor aircraft was declared down, the radio fell silent except for the sound of heavy breathing and the occasional position report. Eagle-7, Hammer, excellent work. Return to base. Roger, Eagle-7 returning to base. As Sarah climbed back to cruising altitude for the flight home, she allowed herself a small smile. The exercise had gone exactly as she had hoped. Not only had she proven her worth in combat, but she had done it while saving the careers of pilots who might have been shot down without her intervention. The flight back to Edwards was peaceful, giving her time to reflect on the engagement. She analyzed each decision, each maneuver, looking for areas where she could improve. It was a habit that had served her well throughout her career. Landing was routine, and she taxied back to her parking spot where Chief Williams waited with his usual post-flight grin. "How did she perform, Captain?" he asked as she shut down the engines. "Like a dream, Chief, like a dream." As she climbed out of the cockpit, Sarah noticed the other pilots gathering near the debriefing room. Their expressions were notably different from the morning's arrogance. Even Viper seemed subdued as he walked past without making his usual comments. The debriefing would tell the complete story of the engagement, but Sarah already knew the outcome. She had proven that Eagle-7 was not just a call sign, but a promise of precision and deadly effectiveness when it mattered most. The debriefing room felt different this time. Instead of the casual chatter and jokes from the morning, the pilots sat quietly as Colonel Harrison prepared the after-action review. Sarah took her usual seat in the middle row, but she noticed several pilots glancing her way with something that looked like respect. "Before we begin the official debrief," Colonel Harrison said, pulling up the exercise data on the main screen, "I want to address what happened out there. Alpha Flight faced a textbook ambush scenario. Superior numbers, coordinated attack, terrain advantage for the enemy. Without intervention, they would have been eliminated within 6 minutes. The tactical display showed the entire engagement from start to finish." Sarah watched as her aircraft symbol dove from high altitude to engage the aggressors. The data told the story better than words could. Eagle-7's intervention not only saved Alpha Flight, but turned what should have been a devastating defeat into a complete victory. 12 enemy aircraft eliminated with 0 friendly losses. Colonel Harrison looked directly at Sarah. That's the kind of tactical awareness and execution that wins real wars. Captain Peterson, Alpha Flight's leader, spoke up from the front row. "Colonel, I need to say something. Eagle-7 saved our lives out there. We were getting chopped up and suddenly the bad guys started falling out of the sky. I've never seen anything like it." "The stealth approach was perfect," added Alpha 3. "They never knew what hit them until it was too late." Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. Professional recognition meant everything to her, but she had learned not to show too much emotion in front of her peers. "Let's walk through the engagement step by step," Colonel Harrison continued, clicking through the tactical replay. "Eagle-7, talk us through your initial assessment when you detected the first contacts." Sarah stood up, moving to the front of the room. The initial 4 aircraft were too obvious. Real attackers wouldn't announce their presence like that unless they were trying to draw attention away from something else. "When I detected the high-altitude singleton, I knew we were looking at a coordinated deception." She pointed to the screen showing the early part of the engagement. The terrain masking confirmed it. They were using the mountains to hide their true numbers, planning to overwhelm Alpha Flight with superior force at the crucial moment. "Why didn't you engage immediately when you detected the additional aircraft?" asked Captain Rodriguez from Bravo Flight. "2 reasons," Sarah replied. "First, I needed to confirm the threat was real and not a sensor ghost. Second, attacking too early would have scattered them before Alpha Flight could get into position to help. Better to let them commit to their attack plan than hit them when they were focused on their targets." Lieutenant Thompson, call sign Viper, had remained silent throughout the discussion. Finally, he raised his hand. "Eagle-7, I have a question about your engagement sequence. You took out 4 aircraft in rapid succession. How did you maintain situational awareness with that many targets?" There was no mockery in his voice now. Just genuine curiosity. Sarah appreciated the professional tone. "The F-22's sensors give you a complete picture of the battle space," she explained. "But technology only works if you know how to use it. I prioritize targets based on threat assessment. The flight leader first because removing command and control disrupts their coordination. Then the aircraft that pose the greatest immediate threat to Alpha Flight." "What about the remaining aggressors?" asked another pilot. "They adapted pretty quickly once they figured out what was happening." "They did," Sarah agreed. "That's when tactics become more important than technology. I used their confusion against them, staying mobile and unpredictable while Alpha Flight regrouped. Once we achieved numerical parity, it was just a matter of execution." Colonel Harrison nodded approvingly. "Outstanding tactical awareness and decision-making." The aggressor commander specifically requested to speak with Eagle-7 after the exercise. Says he wants to understand how his carefully planned ambush fell apart so completely. The debriefing continued for another hour, analyzing every aspect of the engagement. Sarah answered questions about radar management, energy conservation, and target prioritization. She could see the other pilots taking notes, treating her insights as valuable training material. When the official session ended, several pilots approached her individually. Captain Rodriguez was the first. "Sarah, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I should have spoken up more when people were giving you grief. What you did out there was nothing short of brilliant." "Thanks, Mike. That means a lot coming from you." Peterson joined them, still shaking his head in amazement. "I've been flying fighters for 12 years, and I've never seen anyone maintain that kind of situational awareness in a complex engagement. Where did you learn to think like that?" "My father," Sarah replied without hesitation. "He flew F-4s in Vietnam, started teaching me about tactical thinking when I was 8 years old. Said the cockpit was no place to learn how to fight." "Smart man," Peterson said. "You saved my bacon out there, Eagle. I won't forget it." As the pilots dispersed, Sarah noticed Viper hanging back near the door. She gathered her materials and walked toward the exit, unsure whether to expect another confrontation. "Martinez," he called out as she approached. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Sarah stopped, her guard up but her expression neutral. "What's on your mind, Thompson?" Viper looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Look, I need to apologize for this morning, and yesterday, and pretty much every day since you got here, actually." Sarah raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I was wrong," he continued. "About you. About why you got your call sign, about everything. What you did today was incredible flying. And I was an idiot for not recognizing your skills earlier." "Why the change of heart?" Sarah asked. "Because watching you work out there was like getting a masterclass in air combat. I learned more about tactical thinking in one engagement than I have in my last 100 training flights." He extended his hand. "I'd like to start over if you're willing." Sarah looked at his outstretched hand for a moment, then shook it firmly. "We all make mistakes, Viper. What matters is learning from them. Thanks. And for what it's worth, I think Eagle is a perfect call sign for you. You really do see everything from up there." Later that afternoon, Sarah was in the squadron office catching up on paperwork when Colonel Harrison knocked on her cubicle wall. "Captain Martinez, do you have a minute?" "Of course, sir." She stood up, expecting another discussion about the morning's exercise. "Walk with me," he said, leading her out of the office and onto a quiet section of the flight line. "Sarah, I'm going to be direct with you. What you demonstrated today is exactly the kind of tactical leadership this squadron needs." "Thank you, sir. I'm recommending you for the weapons school," he continued. "It's a 6-month program at Nellis. The best of the best. Think you're interested?" Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. The weapons school was every fighter pilot's dream assignment. Only the top 1% of pilots were selected, and graduation virtually guaranteed rapid promotion and command opportunities. "I'm definitely interested, sir, but I thought the selection board wasn't meeting for another 6 months." "There's been a change. They're adding an accelerated session starting next month. Special focus on advanced air-to-air tactics and stealth employment. Your performance today, combined with your overall record, makes you an ideal candidate." Colonel Harrison handed her a folder. "Application packet. I've already completed my recommendation letter. If you decide to apply, get this back to me by Friday." That evening, Sarah sat in her quarters reading through the weapons school application. The requirements were daunting: academic coursework, flight training, tactical instruction, and a final examination that had a 30% failure rate. But it represented the pinnacle of fighter pilot achievement. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The caller ID showed her father's number. "Hi, Dad." "Sarah, I just got off the phone with Jim Harrison. He told me about your flight today. I'm proud of you, sweetheart." "Thanks, Dad. It felt good to finally show what I can do." "Jim also mentioned the weapons school opportunity. That's a big decision." Sarah set down the application packet. "I know. 6 months away from the squadron, incredibly demanding program, no guarantee of success. But if I graduate, it opens up possibilities I've dreamed about since the academy." "What does your gut tell you?" It was a question her father had asked her many times over the years. He believed in trusting intuition backed by careful analysis. "My gut says go for it. The worst thing that can happen is I fail and come back to my current assignment. The best thing is I become one of the Air Force's top tactical instructors." "Then you have your answer. I've never known you to back down from a challenge." After hanging up with her father, Sarah walked outside onto the balcony of her quarters. The desert air was cooling as the sun set behind the mountains. In the distance, she could see the lights of the flight line where aircraft were being prepared for night training missions. She thought about the day's events. The mocking comments from Viper seemed like they had happened weeks ago rather than hours. The engagement with the aggressor force had changed something fundamental in how her squadron mates viewed her. But more importantly, it had confirmed something she had always believed about herself. She belonged in the cockpit of an F-22, using her skills to protect others and accomplish the mission. The weapons school would give her the tools to do that at an even higher level. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Peterson. "Hey, Eagle, drinks at the O Club tomorrow night. The whole squadron's going. You better be there. After today, you're buying the first round." Sarah smiled and typed back, "I'll be there, and the first round is on me." She went back inside and picked up the application packet. The first page asked for her statement of purpose, explaining why she wanted to attend the weapons school and what she hoped to accomplish there. Sarah sat down at her computer and began typing. "I am applying to the weapons school because I believe in the mission of air superiority and the protection of American forces worldwide. Today's training exercise demonstrated that superior technology and aircraft are only as effective as the tactical knowledge and decision-making ability of the pilot flying them." She paused, thinking about the engagement and how satisfying it had felt to outthink and outfight the aggressor force. "The weapons school represents an opportunity to refine my tactical understanding and learn from the most experienced combat pilots in the Air Force. My goal is to return to operational flying with the knowledge and skills necessary to lead other pilots in combat and ensure mission success in any scenario." As she continued writing, Sarah felt a sense of purpose that went beyond personal achievement. The weapons school wasn't just about advancing her career. It was about becoming the best possible version of herself as a fighter pilot, so she could protect her wingmen and serve her country with distinction. The application asked for 3 personal references beyond her commanding officer. Sarah immediately thought of her father, whose Vietnam War experience and continued involvement in aviation training made him an obvious choice. Her second choice was her flight instructor from the academy, who had first recognized her natural tactical instincts. For the third reference, she hesitated, then smiled and picked up her phone. "Peterson, it's Sarah. I have a favor to ask. After what you did for us today, name it. I'm applying to the weapons school. I need a peer reference, someone who's seen me perform under pressure and can speak to my tactical abilities. Are you kidding? After today? I'd write you a reference for astronaut training if you asked. Consider it done. Thanks, Shark. I appreciate it. Eagle, can I ask you something? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Sarah looked out at the flight line again, watching the navigation lights of an aircraft taxiing for takeoff. "Leading a squadron. Teaching other pilots what I've learned. Maybe flying combat missions if the opportunity arises." She paused. "What about you?" "Same goals, actually. Which is why I'm glad someone like you is going to the weapons school. The Air Force needs more tactical thinkers like you in leadership positions." After finishing the phone call, Sarah returned to her application. The personal essay section asked about her most challenging experience as a pilot and how she had overcome it. She thought about the daily challenges of proving herself in a male-dominated field, the constant pressure to perform better than her peers just to be considered equal. But that wasn't really the story she wanted to tell. Instead, she wrote about her first solo flight in an F-22, when a thunderstorm had developed unexpectedly and she'd had to navigate complex weather while managing a radio failure. The experience had taught her to trust her training and remain calm under pressure, lessons that had served her well in every subsequent challenge. By the time she finished the application, it was nearly midnight. Sarah printed the completed packet and placed it in her flight bag, ready to submit to Colonel Harrison in the morning. As she prepared for bed, she reflected on how much had changed in a single day. This morning, she had been fighting for basic respect from her peers. Tonight, she was applying for one of the most prestigious programs in the Air Force. The transformation hadn't happened because of politics or favoritism. It had happened because she'd been given the opportunity to demonstrate her skills in a meaningful way, and she'd delivered when it mattered most. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time since arriving at Edwards, Sarah felt like she truly belonged. She was Eagle-7, and she was ready for whatever came next. 3 weeks after submitting her weapons school application, Sarah received the call that would change everything. She was in the middle of a pre-flight briefing when her phone buzzed with a message from Colonel Harrison. "My office. Now, bring your flight gear." Her heart raced as she made excuses to leave the briefing. The urgency in the message suggested something significant was happening, but she couldn't tell if it was good news or bad. Colonel Harrison's office door was open when she arrived. Inside, she found not only her commanding officer, but also a man in civilian clothes she didn't recognize, and another Air Force officer wearing the distinctive patches of Nellis Air Force Base. "Captain Martinez, please come in and close the door," Colonel Harrison said, his expression unreadable. Sarah entered the office, setting her helmet and flight bag on the chair beside the door. "You wanted to see me, sir?" "Sarah, this is Colonel Patricia Saber Williams from the weapons school at Nellis, and Mr. David Chen from Pentagon Air Staff." He gestured to his guests. "They have some interesting news for you." Colonel Williams stood up and extended her hand. She was a small woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in every detail. "Captain Martinez, I've heard impressive things about your performance here at Edwards." "Thank you, ma'am." "Your weapons school application was impressive, but we're not here to discuss the standard program." She paused, studying Sarah's face. 3 days ago, intelligence sources confirmed that a hostile nation has been developing advanced stealth fighters with capabilities that match or exceed our own F-22s. Mr. Chen opened a briefcase and pulled out a classified folder. "This changes everything about air superiority planning. We need pilots who can think beyond current doctrine and develop new tactics for fighting against near-peer stealth aircraft." "Which brings us to why we're here," Colonel Williams continued. "We're creating a special squadron at Nellis, 12 pilots, hand-selected for their tactical innovation and proven performance under pressure. The mission is to develop and test new air combat tactics against advanced threats." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This sounded like an opportunity beyond her wildest dreams. "The assignment is classified, dangerous, and will require you to push both yourself and your aircraft to absolute limits," Mr. Chen added. "Failure rates in training will be high. Combat deployments will be likely. Are you interested?" Without hesitation, Sarah replied, "Yes, sir, absolutely." Colonel Harrison smiled. "I thought you might say that." "Sarah, you'll be leaving Edwards next week. Your new squadron commander specifically requested you based on your performance in last month's exercise." "Who is the squadron commander, sir?" "Lieutenant Colonel Rebecca Phoenix Taylor. She's a combat veteran with 3 air-to-air kills and a reputation for tactical innovation that matches your own." Colonel Williams handed her a thick envelope. "Your orders and initial briefing materials. Everything in there is classified secret. Study it carefully, but don't discuss it with anyone outside this room." After the officials left, Colonel Harrison walked Sarah back toward the flight line. "This is a big opportunity, but it's also a big risk. You'll be testing tactics that have never been tried before, against simulated threats that could kill you if something goes wrong." "I understand, sir, but this is exactly what I've trained for my entire career." "I know it is. That's why I recommended you without hesitation." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Sarah, you've proven yourself here at Edwards. You've earned the respect of every pilot in this squadron. Now you're going to have the chance to help shape the future of air combat." That evening, Sarah sat in her quarters reading through the classified briefing materials. The intelligence reports painted a sobering picture of advancing threats around the world. Enemy aircraft with stealth characteristics equal to American fighters, advanced missiles with longer ranges, and electronic warfare capabilities that could disrupt traditional tactics. The new squadron's mission was to develop countermeasures and new fighting techniques before these threats became operational. It was exactly the kind of challenging, cutting-edge work she had dreamed about since her academy days. Her phone rang, interrupting her reading. The caller ID showed Peterson's number. "Hey, Shark. Eagle, I just heard the news. You're leaving us for some classified assignment at Nellis?" "You heard correctly. I can't talk about the details, but it's an incredible opportunity." "I figured as much. Listen, the squadron's throwing you a farewell party tomorrow night at the O Club. You better be there." "I wouldn't miss it. Also, I wanted you to know that Viper asked if he could say something at the party." Apparently, he's been working on some kind of speech. Sarah chuckled. That should be interesting. He's really changed since that training exercise. I think seeing you in action opened his eyes to what real tactical thinking looks like. The farewell party turned out to be larger than Sarah had expected. Pilots from other squadrons attended, along with crew chiefs, intelligence officers, and even some of the base commanders. Word had apparently spread about her new assignment and her performance that had led to it. Colonel Harrison stood up to address the crowd. Before we say goodbye to Captain Martinez, I want to share something with all of you. 3 weeks ago, Sarah demonstrated the kind of tactical excellence that defines our profession. But more importantly, she showed us what's possible when skill meets opportunity and preparation meets challenge. He raised his beer in a toast. To Eagle-7, may your new mission be successful, and may you continue to make us proud. The crowd echoed the toast, and Sarah felt genuinely moved by the display of support. These were people who had initially doubted her abilities, but who now respected her as both a pilot and a leader. Viper approached the front of the room, looking nervous but determined. I asked if I could say something because I owe Captain Martinez a public apology. The room fell silent, curious about what the usually brash pilot would say. When Sarah first arrived here, I made assumptions about her abilities based on things that had nothing to do with flying. I was wrong, and I was unprofessional. He looked directly at Sarah. What you did in that training exercise wasn't just good flying. It was the kind of tactical thinking that saves lives in combat. I'm honored to have served with you, and I'm grateful for the lesson you taught me about judging people by their actions rather than preconceptions. He turned back to the crowd. Eagle-7 is heading off to do classified work that I'm sure will benefit all of us. Let's make sure she knows she's taking our support with her. The applause was enthusiastic and genuine. Several other pilots took turns sharing stories about Sarah's contributions to the squadron, her willingness to help younger pilots learn, and her consistent professionalism under pressure. When it came time for Sarah to respond, she felt emotional, but tried to keep her remarks brief and professional. Thank you all for this. When I first arrived at Edwards, I wasn't sure how I would fit in. You've taught me that respect is earned through performance, and that the best squadrons are those where every member contributes their unique strengths to the mission. She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many faces as possible. The opportunity I'm taking on exists because of the foundation you've helped me build here. The confidence you've shown in my abilities gives me the courage to tackle whatever challenges come next. I can't talk about the specifics of my new assignment, but I can promise you that everything I learned here about teamwork, tactical thinking, and professional excellence will guide me in whatever missions lie ahead. The party continued late into the evening, with pilots sharing war stories, discussing tactics, and offering Sarah advice about her new assignment. By the time she returned to her quarters, she felt ready for the transition ahead. A week later, Sarah found herself standing on the flight line at Nellis Air Force Base, looking at a row of specially modified F-22s unlike any she had seen before. The aircraft bore no squadron markings, only tail numbers and a small eagle emblem that would become familiar over the months ahead. Lieutenant Colonel Taylor approached from the hangar, her flight suit bearing the same eagle patch. Captain Martinez, welcome to the Shadows. Shadows, ma'am? Our unofficial name. Officially, we're the first experimental tactics squadron. But since most of what we do doesn't officially exist, we prefer something with a bit more character. Colonel Taylor led her toward the hangar, where Sarah could see other pilots examining technical manuals and aircraft systems. Your first week will be intensive briefings on threat capabilities, new weapon systems, and preliminary tactical concepts. After that, we start flying against simulated enemy aircraft that can do everything intelligence tells us the real threats can do. How realistic are the simulations, ma'am? Realistic enough that we've already lost 2 pilots to training accidents. This isn't a game, Captain. The tactics we develop here could determine whether American pilots live or die in future conflicts. Inside the hangar, Colonel Taylor introduced Sarah to her new squadron mates. 12 of the most experienced and innovative pilots in the Air Force, each selected for specific skills that would contribute to the overall mission. Captain Martinez brings air-to-air tactical expertise and an impressive record of performance under pressure, Colonel Taylor announced to the group. Some of you may have heard about her engagement against a superior force during a recent training exercise at Edwards. Several pilots nodded in recognition. Word apparently traveled fast in the fighter pilot community. Our first major test exercise is scheduled for 6 weeks from now. We'll be facing aggressor aircraft equipped with systems that match the latest intelligence on enemy capabilities. The goal is to validate new tactical concepts under realistic conditions. Colonel Taylor handed Sarah a thick manual titled Advanced Stealth on Stealth Combat Tactics. Your homework for the next week. By Friday, I want you prepared to brief the squadron on your recommendations for dealing with low observable threats in multi-aircraft engagements. That evening, Sarah called her father to let him know she had arrived safely at Nellis. How does it feel to be part of an elite unit? He asked. Intimidating and exciting at the same time. These are some of the best pilots I've ever met, and we're working on problems that don't have established solutions. That sounds exactly like the kind of challenge you've always thrived on. Dad, can I ask you something? When you were flying in Vietnam, how did you deal with facing threats that were constantly evolving? Her father was quiet for a moment. The key was never assuming that what worked yesterday would work tomorrow. We had to stay flexible, think creatively, and always be ready to adapt when the situation changed. That's what we're doing here, but on a much larger scale. Then you're in exactly the right place. Trust your instincts, learn from your teammates, and remember that your job is to solve problems that could save thousands of lives. Over the following weeks, Sarah threw herself into the intensive training program. She studied enemy aircraft capabilities, practiced new tactical formations, and worked with her squadron mates to develop innovative approaches to air combat. The modified F-22s they flew incorporated new sensors and weapon systems still in development. Flying them was like getting a preview of the future of air warfare. Exciting but also sobering as she realized how quickly technology was advancing. Her big moment came during the major test exercise Colonel Taylor had mentioned. The squadron faced off against aggressor aircraft that perfectly simulated the capabilities of next-generation enemy fighters. Unlike the Edwards exercise where superior numbers had been the main challenge, this time the enemy aircraft were individually superior to anything currently in service. Sarah found herself leading a 4-ship formation against 6 enemy aircraft that could match her stealth characteristics and exceeded her missile range. Traditional tactics called for avoiding engagement under such circumstances, but the exercise was designed to test new concepts for fighting when avoiding engagement wasn't an option. Shadow flight, this is Shadow Leader, she called to her formation. Execute Razor Protocol on my mark. Razor Protocol was one of the new tactics they had developed, using coordinated maneuvering and electronic warfare to create targeting opportunities that wouldn't exist in traditional engagements. The exercise lasted 45 minutes and pushed both aircraft and pilots to their limits. When it ended, Sarah's formation had successfully engaged all 6 enemy aircraft, while suffering only 1 simulated loss of their own. Outstanding execution, Colonel Taylor's voice came over the radio. Return to base for debrief. During the post-flight analysis, the squadron realized they had just validated an entirely new approach to air combat. The tactics they had developed and Sarah had led could give American pilots a fighting chance against technological superior opponents. Captain Martinez, Colonel Taylor said as they reviewed the engagement data, you just proved that Eagle-7 isn't just a call sign. You've demonstrated that superior tactics and coordination can overcome technological disadvantage. As Sarah looked at the data showing her formation's successful engagement, she realized this was exactly what she had dreamed of since her first day at the Air Force Academy. Not just flying advanced aircraft, but contributing to the development of capabilities that would protect American forces for decades to come. The mocking voices from her early days at Edwards seemed like echoes from another lifetime. Now she was Eagle-7 of the shadows, developing the tactics that would define air warfare for the next generation. She had found her place, and she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead.